Okay. I wanted to give a little introduction to what is referred to as the window of tolerance. It is a polyvagal informed theoretical concept that highlights essentially stress responses and the nervous system and really kind of helps us to kind of hone in on why sometimes we might flip our lids, why sometimes we might seem like we lose control, or maybe in the context of parenting, why or teaching, why a child might seem like they're not accessible, they're not they can't access compassion and they're not even learning, they're not engaging, like what is going on? So it is a framework with a visual that I find very helpful to share with clients to be able to recognize that um, it can be helpful to look at interactions with others through a nervous system perspective, meaning every single interaction we have is kind of nervous system to nervous system. It is human to human. We all have our own stuff that we bring to the table, and depending on where we're at in our own kind of state of regulation, um, does certainly impact and potentially even determine how we're able to show up or whether we're able to show up in the ways that we are wanting or needing. So I will share my screen. Here it says symptoms of undischarged traumatic stress. So this visual from Peter Levine shows one traumatic event as having impact, whereas when we talk about highly sensitive people or neurodivergent people, or even just people on a grander scale than just trauma survivors, it's not necessarily just one traumatic thing that can knock us outside of this window of tolerance, but it can be an accumulation of things. It can be an accumulation of stressors or experiences, or even sensory experiences that push one outside of this window. So when I say window of tolerance, first I'm going to draw your attention to the two dashed lines across the screen here in the middle, and where it says normal range. That's where we're referring to the normal range of someone's window of tolerance, or their ability to tolerate stressors or stimuli. So the average person, if they are well kind of acclimated to life and they're managing pretty well, they are what's indicated here as that gray line that goes up and down. So throughout the day, they may have some highs, some stressors, they may have some lows, sometimes where they're tired or sad, but they don't necessarily go outside that normal range. They have kind of either naturally developed coping strategies or mechanisms, or they've cultivated strategies that work for their nervous system to stay within that normal range. So, for example, someone gets an upsetting phone call. So they may escalate a little bit, but they stay within that normal range by reaching out to a friend, for example, if that's something that helps them regulate. And so it helps them come back within that normal range, stay in the middle there. They may get, a text from a friend who cancels an event, so they might feel a little bit low, but they're not dipping beneath that line either, because they breathe through it, or they have ways of thinking about the situation that serve them to make sense of it, and they stay regulated. What can happen is if it is one major traumatic event, certainly this can happen. However, again, for neurodivergent people, for highly sensitive individuals, or for people who are simply feeling the weight of an accumulated list of stressors, we can have things that kind of knock us outside of that window of tolerance. And we can find ourselves way up here, or we can find ourselves way down here. Starting with the above the line position, this is where we would find the stress responses of fight and flight. So in this box here that Peter Levine's created, we might have symptoms that look like anxiety or panic, hyperactivity, an exaggerated startle, inability to relax, restlessness, hypervigilance, digestive problems, emotional flooding, chronic pain, sleeplessness, hostility, rage, and so on. Up here, we're not in the window of tolerance, meaning we're not regulated. Our nervous system is amped. Okay. On the flip side, on the bottom, this is where we find the stress responses of freeze and fawn. So here we might have symptoms of depression, flat affect, lethargy, deadness, exhaustion, chronic fatigue, disorientation, disconnection, dissociation, complex syndromes, pain, low blood pressure, poor digestion, and so on. Okay. Often nervous systems will have kind of a home away from home, like, where I might tend to kind of go into fight right away. My partner's home away from home may be to fawn, maybe to please or to shut down, to freeze. So we each kind of have a home away from home that our nervous system will jump to if stress is high enough. Back to the window for a moment. In our normal range, in our window of tolerance, we are able to not experience those symptoms to such a degree that they impact our functioning, they impact our ability to live. So we're able to cope with, maybe a wave of anxiety. We can regulate, we can stay. In that normal range, we are able to problem solve. We are able to think logically and rationally. We're able to feel empathy and compassion for another. So to have a reciprocal sort of relationship and conversation, we are able to have that for ourselves. And ultimately, we are regulated. Whereas above that line or below that line, those things kind of go offline. So unless you're regulated, learning, not going to happen. Productive conversation, not going to happen. It's not accessible in the nervous system. As soon as the nervous system flips into a stress response, we are in survival brain. We're in survival mode. Evolution has taken over, and we are looking out for those cues of danger, cues of safety, to protect oneself. Ultimately, at that base evolutionary survival mechanism kicks in. So might make sense to educators or parents, for example, or even a partner of someone who may flip their lid and is quite dysregulated a lot of the time, why we aren't able to problem solve, why this kid isn't getting this concept, why I've told them a million times, why aren't they, why can't they, so often we don't actually say why can't they, we say why won't they. And it's kind of a big perception paradigm shift to recognize it's not, when someone is outside of that window, it's not that they won't. It actually becomes a can't. It's not accessible because when our brain is on for survival, it's not on for those higher minded parts of what we now experience in our kind of world. We're not thinking relationally when we are thinking of surviving. So this is important for anyone in relationship with another person. This is crucial for parents to understand that it's not just kids who are dysregulated or who get dysregulated. And actually, it's really important for parents and educators to recognize my regulation is of utmost importance if I want to see regulation in a child. So that's my quick intro to the window of tolerance, to this idea of we are humans interacting with other humans from one nervous system to another. And there's a lot more that we can build on that, but that's my introduction. And I hope that it's given you some things to think about. If you have questions, post them. If you'd like to hear more or a more fleshed out interpretation of that or what actually is happening, then let me know. And I hope that has been helpful for you, and see you later.